You can have anything in life. Anything you want to have in life is possible once you give yourself permission. Everything starts with permission. We are allowed to want what we want. We're allowed to feel the way that we feel. We're allowed to be mad at that person. We're allowed to love that person. We're allowed to want the business we want to have. We are allowed to be held back by things that are legitimately holding us back. If we keep denying our reality and saying, that's not true, this isn't supposed to be the way I feel, this isn't supposed to be the way I'm reacting, I'm supposed to be able to handle more, we're going to crash and burn because it's not authentic. Everything in life changes once we give our permission to be who we are, to feel how we are feeling, and to need what we need. I am Matt Gerlach, and welcome to Matters of the Mind, Rise to Your Worth. I help super high performers, entrepreneurs, executives who are battling with anxiety get to a place where they can drive their lives and their business to reach maximum potential, maximum profit, and maximum freedom, maximum impact. Does that sound like you? I am 41 years old, and for the first 36, even 37 years of my life, I wasn't giving myself permission to go after the things that I wanted in life. The things that I needed, I thought weren't reasonable. The feelings that I thought I wasn't supposed to be having. I thought I was too emotional. I thought I was too sensitive, and that I really wasn't supposed to feel that way. I had a desire to have a very safe, financially abundant life, and I thought something was wrong with me for that. And most devastating of all, I wasn't giving myself permission to feel the pain that I was going through, the suffering I was going through. In 2016, I was laid off from my job, and it wasn't really too tragic. I knew it was coming, and I had made a lot of money. I had always been a good saver, and I had started thinking about the business I was planning on starting. I had spent about 6 years in the baby product industry. When I moved to New York, I randomly fell into this luxury baby product industry, and it was booming, and I decided I'd start a consulting business for baby product manufacturers that I could help with my services, things that I had done for much larger companies. I wanted to help smaller companies have access to. When I started this business, I started to feel stress and worry like I had never felt before. The anxiety and the depression that I was suffering from became almost debilitating. I was having panic attacks that finally kept me from driving, and I really couldn't even get behind the wheel of the car and reliably get myself to the gym or the grocery store or the dozens of doctor's appointments I was going to each month trying to figure out what was going on. I landed in the hospital 2 different times thinking I was having a heart attack. I didn't know that emotional health could affect a person to the degree it was affecting me. I was committed. I was convinced that what was going on with me had to be physical. I had a brain tumor. I had a bad heart. I had cancer that was eating away at my body. I had no idea that this was emotional distress that I was under. Looking back at this time, what strikes me the most was all I would have had to do to make this journey a lot smoother on myself would have been to give myself permission. All I had to do was just to say to myself, acknowledge to myself, Matt, you feel like crap. This depression that you are feeling, this anxiety, this worry, it is real and it is happening. We don't know why it's happening, but it's real and it's there. And I didn't do that. I'm not berating myself for not doing that. I want that to be totally clear. I want you to know how hard it was for me to really finally acknowledge that what was going on was not physical, but it was emotional. And finally, I learned it didn't mean that anything was wrong with me for feeling the way that I did. What it meant was that I was under too much pressure for what I could handle. What I uncovered after going to dozens of doctors, I saw a head and neck surgeon, I saw a breathing specialist, I saw an addiction specialist, I was seeing a general practitioner, I was seeing a cardiologist, I was seeing my regular doctor. It was insane. And finally, I went to a neurologist and he said to me, Matt, I've seen what you're going through a million times. This doctor was so staunch. He was like really rude and he was like, don't ever come back here. I've seen this a million times. You don't need me. It's plain old anxiety. When he told me it was anxiety, I felt relief. It meant I more than likely wasn't dying. Great news. It also meant doing more and more of the same things over and over again. I was already going to therapy. I was in coaching. I was doing this neurofeedback therapy. My partner and I were in couples therapy. I was in yoga teacher training, learning about yogic philosophy so I could calm myself. I was learning how to meditate. I was walking one afternoon crying, walking the dog with my yogurt land, and some elderly woman stopped me and saw me and was like, oh my God, are you okay? Can I help you learn how to meditate? Would you mind if I came over to your house tomorrow and showed you how to meditate? Through my tears, I was like, oh my God, please, anyone who would help me, I was allowing them to help me. And this meant doing more and more of that. When I look back to those first several years when I started my business, what strikes me the most is that those feelings that I was feeling, the suffering that I was under, it was real. And I wish I would have given myself permission to just honor the way that I was feeling. I wish I would have just acknowledged it. I wish I would have told more people what I was going through because I would have got more help along the way. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're in a high pressure situation, there is a lot on your shoulders. And I felt like I had to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I felt ashamed for asking for help from people. To be honest, I didn't tell my clients what was going on because I was too afraid they were going to see that I was weak and let me go. I persevered, and while it was incredibly isolating and I felt so alone, I gained some incredible strength through it, but I didn't give myself permission for my feelings. I didn't give myself permission for the emotional anguish that I was in. When I think back to that time, I remember how hard I was on myself. I remember with my coaches, with my therapists, with my friends, telling them all the things that I thought I was doing wrong, not eating well enough, not dealing with stress well enough somehow. I wasn't going to the gym enough. I wasn't doing enough yoga. I was drinking too much. I was eating too much sugar. I wasn't going for enough walks. I was doing so much for myself. And I just thought if I could figure this out, if I could do that one thing better, if I could do more of this, then I would be able to solve my problems. And it wasn't happening. I was trying. I just needed to give myself permission that that's the way things were. I was in that place where I wasn't feeling well, where I needed more help, where the stress of the business was killing me. As the years passed, I realized there was more to the story than met the eye. There was more that I didn't remember. As I started getting deeper and deeper in writing my book, talking with my writing coach about what I was writing each week, I started to realize that I had a traumatic childhood. There was a lot that happened when I was growing up that left scars on me. At school, I was abandoned by my friends and I was ashamed for it. I thought that it was because I was gay, because I was fat, because there were things that were wrong with me. And I didn't really successfully make friends for about 4 years after that happened. At home, there was a lot going on. My parents were very overwhelmed. They had their own problems that they needed to deal with. There was a lot of stress that they couldn't manage very well. There was a lot that happened in their childhood that left scars on them and ill-equipped to handle what was going on in my life. I realized that all of this stress, all of the worrying, all of the suffering that I was going through was valid. This was all happening because I hadn't dealt with my childhood yet. I hadn't dealt with everything that had happened. And I believe I've seen for myself when we level up in life quickly, when some big jump happens, and it could be a magnificent jump in a very positive direction, this is when the cracks show. We're not able to handle all the goodness, all of the abundance, all of the joy that's coming our way because there's still these remnants from our past that need to be worked through. For a big part of my healing journey, I wasn't able to admit that I had these scars. I thought that somebody else had it worse. There were way worse things that were happening in the world. And I grew up in a home that was warm. There was food on the table. It was very clean. I grew up knowing I was loved. I went to a really good elementary school. My parents moved to this area so we can get this good education. I didn't think it was fair for me to complain that socially it wasn't working for me. I wasn't giving myself permission to feel the way that I felt. There's this doctor, he's also an author. His name is Dr. Gabor Mate. He talks about big T and little t trauma. Big T trauma are horrible things, fighting in a war, a very violent act. These are horrible things that are undeniably traumatic. There's little t traumas as well. Those are small things, medium things. That's my situation, being friendless for 4 years, walking around the playground, trying to look like I wasn't such a loser, and holding that into myself. There were things that were said to me as a child that left scars. Those are all little t traumas. Once I finally learned to be able to give myself permission for the state of my life, everything changed. I needed to heal. I needed help. I needed to get some relief from the stress of life. And once I finally gave myself that permission to admit to myself that I indeed was overwhelmed, that the worrying that I was feeling was so intrusive in my life, I could hardly stand it, and that the stress I was feeling was debilitating, everything changed. Back about 8 years ago, when the stress of the business was at its worst, I remember thinking to myself, if I could just earn $100,000 more and save that, then I can finally rest. I dreamt of this healing facility on the beach. I didn't want to go someplace that wasn't beautiful, that wasn't relaxing, that wasn't pleasurable. My whole life I had been working and saving, and I knew that I needed something. I needed some relief in my life. And I kept thinking to myself, tomorrow, I can have it tomorrow if I save today. If I can keep sacrificing, and if I can endure this for another year, another 6 months, whatever it would be, then I could rest. Then I could start taking care of myself. Then I could give myself what I needed. It's not lost on me that tomorrow may have never come. My blood pressure was through the roof, and it was a real possibility that a stroke or a heart attack could have taken my life. Once I finally gave myself permission for these feelings, for my needs, for what was going on in my life, I was able to work with coaches, work with my therapist, and develop tools around this. When I look back to then, I was dead set on believing that I needed this healing facility, that I needed to completely disengage from the world so I can find relief. It's funny, I haven't gotten that break, and I feel better than ever. I learned tools and I developed practices that allowed me to keep my life going. I was able to manage my stress, and I was able to manage the overwhelm, almost cure the anxiety and depression without medication by using these tools: meditation, journaling, yoga, getting outside, taking care of myself, not drinking so much, eating well, sleeping early. All of these things helped me improve so much. I needed to set boundaries personally and professionally, get myself out of situations that were making me feel anxious. I was able to change my life completely and have gotten to the place now without this big break that I thought I needed. And don't get me wrong, I think we should all take a break if we need it. But what I'm saying is, it's not all or nothing. When I think of back then, when I was struggling so much, if I would have just given myself permission, hired the right coach, I would have gotten through this so much easier. There are people out there who have been where you are right now that can help you navigate this journey. My problem was I just struggled so long to give myself permission for the state of which my life was in, with what I needed, with the fact that I needed help. And it didn't need to be that way. I want to just let you know that whatever you're going through, whatever you're feeling, whatever you want to change in your life, it is completely possible, and you deserve to go after any version of your life that you want to. I'm giving you permission today. I'm inviting you to give permission to yourself. You are allowed to feel the way that you feel. You are allowed to have a hard time. You are allowed to need something. You are allowed to take a break. You are allowed to ask for help and how to get through this difficult time. And I'm here for you. I'm a high performance coach. I work with entrepreneurs and executives. I help with personal lives and I consult on business problems as well. I have 15 years of entrepreneurial experience, and I would love to speak with anybody who's suffering. I don't want anybody to be going through what I went through for the length of time that I went through. It could have been so much faster. I'm going to leave you here today. I want to thank you for listening, and if you got something from this episode, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe, and if you would be so kind as to leave me a review. It helps me spread my message to other people who can benefit. Thank you so much.